Okay, let's try this again. So, so this is the temple that's going to be in the Messianic Kingdom. Ezekiel was a captive in Babylon, and God brought him in a vision to Jerusalem in the future and showed him this future temple. So we're about halfway through it right now. And so we're at the stage, I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of what we covered
last week, brother.
Yeah, at the end of the last week session. We didn't do a walkthrough of that. So we looked at these tables of sacrifice by the north gate,
Okay.
north inner gate. And then let's see, then we looked at the excuse me, the singers' chambers on the inner court. And next we looked at, because we know in Psalms it talks about how there's singers in the temple. Then we looked at the inner court itself, 100 by 100 cubits. And we've got the temple on the west side and the altar right in the middle of the inner court. Here's some dimensions for it. We have like leaving out the border is 500 by 500. So all these pavements, like the lower pavement here is 50, and then the courts are 100. So the outer court is 100, called the outer court because it's further out from the inner court. We got the upper pavements are 50, and then the inner court's 100. So going across from the top to the bottom, we have 50 plus 100 plus 50, that's 200. And coming up from the bottom, we have 50 plus 100 plus 50, that's 200. So that's 400, and 100 in the middle, that's 500. And going across it also equals 500. So now we're looking at the porch to the temple itself. It's got these posts on the side, and it's got these pillars over here. And we can go inside and look around. It's got alternating palm trees and cherubs on the walls. It's got a folding gate here between the oh, what just happened? Between the holy place, which is 20 by 40, and the Holy of Holies, which is square, 20 by 20. And then we have this complicated system out here, and over here on the side, we've got what's an interesting thing called the separate place to keep the rest of the temple, the rest of the compound separate from the temple. So there's a separate place, like a wall, all the way around. It has no entrance to it. Nothing happens there. It's not like the it's not like this walkway around the priest chambers here, or these chambers here. It's just nothing's here. It's just separate to keep the holiness of God separate. And then we come to the west building over here. And again, there's nothing explained about what the west building is for. I don't know if it's a banquet hall or empty to preserve the holiness of God, or a storage place, but that's the west building. And then there's another view of the separate place. There's a more detailed breakdown of the temple wall widths and stuff like that. Let's go on to, there's a an altar in there for incense. There's folding doors in the porch, planks, not folding doors, planks. Over here we have the priest chambers on the outside. This one's longer, this one in the inside, and it's shorter on this side, so that the priest can see out to the outer court here. It's three-tiered, and the tiers on the top are not as wide as the tiers on the bottom, so that everybody gets a little porch sticking out, and the priests put on their priestly garments and eat their sacrifices in there. And when they do the people's, they put on other garments and they come out here and do the people's sacrifices. Of course, this has never happened before. This temple has never been built before, but in the Messianic Kingdom. Here's the dimensions of the altar.
Is entirely different than the other temples, brother.
It's quite a bit
It's
different.
built different, brother.
Like there's no court of the Gentiles, it's the similarity is that, of course, the temple is in the middle, and the eastern, it faces the east, so that's the same. That part's the same. There are gates, but probably not the same gates. Now let's go back to the document. Here's the measurements of the altar. You can read those in the Bible yourself. Bottom's a cubit, the width's a cubit, from the bottom on the ground to the lower settle, and from the lesser settle to the greater settle, and so on. Now these steps are wrong here. I should have made these so that they can go all the way up to the top of the altar, so they can walk up there. It's a big altar. They can go up there and walk on there.
Now, is there sacrifices there at that altar?
Yeah, they're gonna tie the sacrifices to these horns on the four sides of the altar and do sacrifices. Yeah, because those sacrifices will point back towards the sacrifice of Messiah.
Will they have the red heifer?
I think they will. I mean, there's a big talk about that nowadays, isn't there?
Yes, there is, brother.
I don't know about. I didn't see a red heifer mentioned in these passages in Ezekiel, so I don't know. This is an interesting part. So Ezekiel 44, we're going to look at the eastern gate. He brought me back by the way of the outer gate of the sanctuary, which looks towards the east, and it was shut. So what was shut is the gate. You have to go at a certain time?
No, I'm waiting for the other group of people to come.
What time do they start? 4:30? Okay. Oh, we got time. So this eastern gate was shut. Then the Lord said to me, this gate will be shut, and no man will enter by it, because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered by it. Remember last time we talked about the Shekinah glory coming back to the Ezekiel's temple and coming through that gate?
Yes.
And that was Yeshua inside the Shekinah glory. You'd have to look at the last session for all the details on that. But Ezekiel describes the Shekinah glory, that there's a man at the top of it in Ezekiel chapter 1. Of course, then at that time it wasn't something that looked like a man. It was the angel of the Lord, which was the visible part of God. Now it's Yeshua, which is the visible part of God. So anyway, this gate now, it's for the prince. The prince, he will sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He will enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and will go out by way of the same. Now remember, on the I go back here to this thing, if I can get out far enough, maybe I should just try one of these. How about this? Nope. So yeah, I can look at it here. So here's an outer gate, and there's no porch on the outside. There's only stairs, but there's a porch on the inside where the outer court is. And then here is an inner gate, and on the inner gates, there's no porch on the inside, but there is a porch on the outside. So all the gates, all the porches face the outer court. So when he says that he's going to enter by the porch of the gate, he's going to be in the outer court, and then he's going to have to enter the gate from the outer court. So here's the outer court where these people are walking, and here's the prince down here standing in the eastern gate, the inner eastern gate. So he can look right up into the temple, right up at the altar. He can watch this priest sacrifice, doing his sacrifices for him. And we won't be able to go in there like he can. We won't be able to go on the porch, but we can walk in this area out here where these people are walking. So, but for the prince, he can enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and he has to go out by the same. He can't go out the other side, because that's where the inner court is, where only the priest can go. Then he brought me the way of the north gate before the temple, and I looked, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the temple of the Lord, and I fell on my face. So that's why this picture shows light here as he's looking at the eastern gate. He's looking at the outer gate there. I don't have a picture of him. Well, here he is on the inner gate. Either way, there's still light coming out of the temple, the Shekinah glory. So he says, and I fell on my face. Then the government. They will serve the Lord their God and David their king, whom I will resurrect to them. So David will be resurrected, and he'll be the king of Israel during the Messianic Kingdom. Jesus said to them, maybe you can read, is there something blocking it? Yeah. Maybe you can read this one, Matthew 19:28.
Jesus said to them, you which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man will sit on the throne of his glory, you also will sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel.
So under David the king, he's over all of Israel. Then we'll have the 12 apostles. They're going to be one of them over each of one of them is going to be over a tribe. And there's actually 13 tribes because Joseph gets 2 tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. And the Levites often don't count as a tribe because they're dedicated to the temple. So I don't think he's going to rule over the Levites. He'll rule over the other tribes. And then Revelation 19, Jesus has a name on his vesture written King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So David is king over Israel, and Jesus will be king over all the kings of the earth. He'll be king over the king of Israel. He'll be king over the king of Egypt, over the king of that, every country, Persia. So Jesus is King of Kings. So that's the government. Jesus, then David and the other kings around the world, and then the 12 apostles, one of them over each of the tribes. Now we're going to start looking at the land. Here's what's called the holy portion. It's a 25,000 by 10,000 area. I was going to say square, but it's square here, but then it extends on the 2 sides. Ezekiel 45:1. Moreover, when you divide by lot the land for inheritance, you will offer an offering to the Lord, a holy portion of the land. So they're giving this piece of land to the Lord. The length will be 25,000 and the width 10,000. Of this there will be for the sanctuary, that is the temple compound, 500 in length with 500 in width, square round about, and 50 cubits round about for the border thereof. The holy portion of the land will be for the priests. So that's why the 50 cubits for the border. Compound. So that's why there's this border, 50 cubit border around here. It wasn't told earlier in the book, but it's told at this point in the book. The holy portion of the land will be for the priests, a place for their houses, and a holy place for the sanctuary. So this area here is for the priests.
That's where they live?
Yeah, that's where they're going to live. And then they don't have much of a commute to work. They just have to walk right there to the temple.
The door right into the temple.
Yeah. And then for the Levites, 25,000 of length and 10,000 of width for the Levites, the ministers of the house, have for themselves a possession. So down here's the Levites. And they do the more menial tasks of the temple, making sure there's water and wood and cleaning up after the sacrifices and things like that. And then for the city, you will appoint the possession of the city 5,000 wide and 25,000 long over against the offering of the holy portion. It will be for the whole house of Israel. So here's the portion for the city, 5,000 in width and 25,000 in length. And then to fund the government, a portion will be for the prince on one side and on the other side of the holy offering, of the holy portion, from the west side westward to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the east side eastward to the Jordan River and the Dead Sea. And my princes will no longer oppress my people. So David won't have to raise taxes from the people. He will have this land on both sides of the holy portion going all the way to the Mediterranean and all the way to the Dead Sea, to use that to generate revenue for the
How would
government.
they generate actual?
By growing things, crops,
Okay,
or they may have places to make things there, whatever he wants to do with the land to generate revenue, but he can't tax the people
okay,
because taxes cause a lot of trouble in countries sometimes.
yes, brother.
Now, the translators added reeds to these words here. It doesn't say reeds. It says the length thereof will be 25,000, and that's all it says. We have to figure out, is it 25,000 reeds or cubits? And we talked about that last episode a little bit, the part one. They shouldn't have added reeds because cubits is already in the text. It's right here, 50 cubits roundabout for the border. So they should have stuck with cubits, but they said reeds. They probably did this because of the reeds back in Ezekiel 42:15. And remember, they did that, I think, because the rabbis tried to hide the dimensions of the temple. And so they added the word reeds into the text back in chapter 42. And also because it talks about a 500 by 500 area, but we saw that the temple was 500 by 500 also. So they didn't need to make a big 500 reed area. This temple area is 500 by 500 cubits, not reeds. So they should have stuck with cubits. If they did that, everything would have worked out nicely, but they didn't. So just ignore the word reeds in your translations when you see that. And then there will be for the sanctuary 500 in length with 500 in width, square roundabout, 50 cubits for the suburbs. It makes more sense to have a 50 cubit border to be 600 by 600. It doesn't make sense to have a 50 cubit border around a 500 reed area. Also, a 25,000 reed long holy offering wouldn't fit on the mountain between the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea, but a 25,000 cubit long area fits nicely. We'll see some pictures of that towards the end. So let's go on to this next part. We saw the prince at the outer gate that he got to eat there. On the inner gate, he gets to watch the sacrifices being done. I think I mentioned that earlier, but this is where the text is. It will be the prince's part to give burnt offerings. You asked, is there sacrifices? Yeah, here's a list of sacrifices. And there's actually more, but I didn't want to list them all. It will be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths, in all the solemnities of the house of Israel. He will prepare the sin offering and the meat offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings to make reconciliation for the house of Israel. So if this reconciliation must just be must be ceremonial reconciliation, because forgiveness of sins, Paul said in Hebrews, can't be accomplished by animal sacrifices. That was only through the sacrifice of Messiah. But ceremonial uncleanness could be handled by these sacrifices. So here's one of the holidays, Passover and Pesach. In the first month, in the 14th day of the month, you shall have the Passover. So we know they're still going to celebrate Passover in the Messianic Kingdom. A feast of 7 days. That's how long it is now for unleavened bread. Unleavened bread shall be eaten. And then in the 7th month, you have this other feast, Tabernacles and Sukkot. In the 15th day of the month, will he do like in the feast of the 7 days. The gate of the inner court that looks towards the east will be shut the 6 working days. So Sunday through Friday, which is the working days in the Jewish reckoning. Sunday through Friday, it'll be closed. But on Saturday, the Sabbath, it will be open. And in the day of the new moon, it will be open. And the prince will enter by the way of the porch of the gate without, and he will stand by the post of the gate, and the priest will prepare his burnt offering and peace offerings, and he will worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he will go out, but the gate will not be shut until the evening. So he comes sometime on Saturday and does his sacrifice, but the gate is open all day long. Likewise, the people of the land will worship at the door of this gate before the Lord in the Sabbaths and in the new moon. So this is where we'll gather when we worship before the Synod. Of course, we're not all going to be there at the same time. The different countries have
Now,
to.
is the prince, who is the prince, brother?
The prince is David. So he's
David's gonna come alive?
yeah, he's going to be resurrected.
Okay,
So he's the king of Israel, but he's called the prince here because he's under the King of Kings, which is Yeshua. So he's a king to Israel, but he's a prince to Jesus. So that's why he's called the prince here. Likewise, the people of the land will worship at the door of this gate before the Lord in the Sabbaths and in the new moons. So the people of the land are the people that are living there, but also the Gentile nations get to come up by turn when it's their turn to come up and worship there. And when the prince will enter, he will go in by the way of the porch of the gate, and he will go out by the same way. He can't go through because that would be the inner court. Now the people, when they come before the Lord in the solemn feast, like when we go there, he that enters in by the way of the north gate to worship will go out by the way of the south gate. And he that enters by the way of the south gate will go out by the way of the north gate. He will not return by the way of the gate whereby he came in, but will go out over opposite it. And the prince in the midst of them, when they go in, will go in, and when they go out, will go out. So let's go back to the picture here. Let's see, that's probably like this. All right, so that's pretty good. Well, that's a pretty good picture. So anyway, so up here's the northern gate, northern outer gate, and down here's the outer southern gate. So we would either come in through the north gate up here and walk around like this, and then walk out down here, or we come in here and walk around like this and walk out up here. You don't come in and then go against traffic and go out the same way you came in. That makes a nice flow of people in both directions, coming in the north and coming in the south. We don't get to use this gate because that's for the prince to do his sacrifices, and we get to worship outside of it. And we don't get to use this gate because that's been closed because the Shekinah glory came through. So all our focus will be on coming in the north gate and going out the south, or vice versa. Now there's boiling places. This is kind of a long paragraph, so maybe I won't read the whole thing. But afterwards, he brought me through the entry, which has the side of the inner north gate, into the holy chambers of the priests, which look toward the north. And behold, there was a place on the two sides westward. And he said, this is the place where the priests will boil the trespass offering and the sin offering, and they will bake the meat offering. So this is next to their chambers, the priestly chambers. Here's the priestly chambers. These one longer one here and shorter one here, and then right back here in the back. I don't know why it's not. It looks there looks solid now. Those are the boiling chambers for the priests. And then he brought me to the outer court and caused me to pass by the four corners of the outer court. And behold, in every corner there was a court. In the four corners of the court, there were courts joined of 40 cubits long and 30 broad, all the same measure. It was made with boiling places under the rows round about. And he said to me, these are the places of them that boil, where the minister of the house boil the sacrifice of the people. So here's a picture of it. And if we look at it in the model, it's right out here. So in the outer court is the part we get to walk around in. And so if we have sacrifices for the priests, they can boil them for us here. They can come out from their chambers and come down the stairs where the gate is over here. And then they can walk over here and boil our sacrifices. And there's one in all four corners. So there's one there. There's one down here.
now, when they say boiling, what do they mean? Do they mean in water?
Yeah, water.
And what are so that cooks the meat?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think that's how we'll share in the sacrifices. We'll eat, I don't know for sure. I think we'll eat some of that meat along with them. But in any case, remember when Eli was the high priest, and he has two sons that were evil,
Yes,
and they wanted to take the meat before it got boiled. They said, the people said, please go ahead and take some meat, but boil it first so that the Lord can have his part.
yeah.
And they said, no, we want the fatty part. We want to take that for ourselves. We don't want boiled meat. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly how all the boiling works, but yeah, that's what it says. There's boiling places there.
Now, what happened to them? Did God curse them?
Oh, those two, they died in the battle. So they came and took the Ark of the Covenant out of the temple, out of the tabernacle. They hadn't built the temple yet. And the tabernacle with the skins and stuff, and like the tent. And it was at Shiloh, I believe. And so they came and took the Ark of the Covenant and brought it into battle with the Philistines. They thought that would help them win the battle, but it didn't. They lost the battle anyway. So they were killed. And when Eli heard the news, he fell over backwards and he broke his neck and he died because God didn't want him to be high priest anymore because he wouldn't control his sons. He let them do some terrible things there with the people as well.
There was a curse
placed upon his family. Right. You're right. Good memory. Yeah. You remember. Now we're going to look at something interesting, the Millennial River. So these are things we should know about. We should know about the mountain that the temple's on. We should know about the temple, with different parts of the temple, the gates and the outer court, the inner court, the temple. And we should know about the Millennial River. So afterwards, he brought me again to the door of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward, for the forefront of the house stood towards the east, and the waters came down from under the right side of the house at the south side of the altar. So here's a picture of the front of the temple, and it faces the east, so the waters are going towards the east, but they're coming out from under the south side of the house. When it says house, it means temple. It uses the word house there. E-L-E. So let me correct this. Maybe there's too many to fix. Anyway, so then it went under the altar, on the south side of the altar. So here it is. Shift. This little blue thing right here, little blue stream coming out from the side of the
is that the water?
That's the water. Comes out just a little trickle from out under here, and then it flows on the south side of the altar, goes towards the east. Let's see if I got a better picture here. There it is. There it is coming out. It goes out from the side of the outer eastern gate. And now I want to load the new part. I think I need to close this one so we can save some memory. Let me close this and open up the second part. Shows a bigger picture. Okay, so here it is coming out from here it is coming out from the side of the eastern gate, on the outer eastern gate. And he brought me out by the way of the outer gate northward and led me around by the way outside to the outer gate that looks towards the east. So he took, he was inside the temple compound, and now he wanted to show him the water coming out from beside the eastern gate. Why didn't he just go through the eastern gate? Why did he have to go out through the northern gate and come around and look at the outside of the eastern gate? So I closed the model, so I can't show you through the model. But how come he couldn't get through this eastern gate? Just walk through and look at the water coming out here. What happens to the inner eastern gate? Well, not the inner eastern gate, the outer eastern gate, once the Shekinah glory goes through. See this picture right here, how it looks? It's all what? It's all blocked up. Yeah, once the Shekinah glory goes through, they block the outside of this gate. So that's why he had to take him out around from the northern side to take him around. So then he there ran waters out on the right side. That is the way it's if you're facing out towards the east. And when the man that had the line in his hand, that's the angel. I wonder if I should change that to angel. Anyway, for clarity, went forth eastward, he measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters, and the waters were to the ankles. So if I look at this thing here and go to the next picture, he measured 1,000 cubits east, and now the waters are pretty wide and they're up to his ankles. So this little trickle of water is miraculously getting bigger and bigger without any other streams feeding into it. And again, he measured 1,000, and the waters were to the knees. So if I go back here and go to the next picture, the angel doesn't get wet. He stays on the shore, lucky angel. But he makes Ezekiel walk in the water. Now they're up to his knees. Again, the waters were to the loins. And then he measured another 1,000, and it was a river that I could not pass over, for the waters were risen, waters to swim in, a river that could not be passed over. So let's look at that picture. We go to here. There's to the loins, or chest. Another 1,000 cubits, and he has to swim. That's how deep it is. I know you already know about this river because you asked me some questions one time about it. He said, these waters issue out toward the east and go down into the desert and go into the Dead Sea, which being brought forth into the sea, the waters will be healed. And there will be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters will go there. And it will come to pass that fishermen will stand on it from Engedi to Eneglaim. They will be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish will be according to their kinds, as the fish of the great sea, the Mediterranean, exceedingly many. But the miry places and the marshes thereof will not be healed. They will be given over to salt. So that's what you asked me before, if there was any places that didn't get.
Now, is it just a certain part of the Dead Sea, or will it be the whole Dead Sea?
It'll be the whole Dead Sea except for these marshes. Because Engedi is on the Dead Sea. That's an oasis. That's mentioned in the Song of Solomon. And the Dead Sea, you won't be able to go there and float anymore like they do now for tourists.
Brother.
It'll be fresh water instead of salt water.
Amazing?
So if you're gonna go float, you better go float now.
That's amazing.
I know.
Wow.
Because these are miraculous waters. This little trickle of water out from under the altar, or out from under the temple porch, will cure those waters. And there'll be trees along this river. I didn't put the trees in the picture, that they also heal us. Not us, because we'll be glorified, but the people that are there in their natural bodies, they will be healed by the fruit of this tree, by the leaves of this tree. So but anyway, yeah, everything that comes from the temple is healing. It will be in that day that living waters will go out from Jerusalem. This is a different book now. We were in Ezekiel. This is just a quote from Zechariah. Why don't you read this for us, John?
It will be in that day that living waters will go out of Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In the summer and in the winter, it will be, and the Lord will be king over all the earth.
Right. So this river is not only going to go towards the Dead Sea, when it hits Jerusalem, it's going to split and go half towards the Mediterranean Sea. And in summer and winter, it will be. Now, in our country, here in upstate New York, we might think that, well, in winter, it might stop flowing because of the cold, but that's not the problem in Israel. The problem is in summer, it can dry up, the wadis dry up, but it's going to flow year long in the rainy season and in the dry season because it's going to come from the temple. Now here's a map of the division of the land. And the land,
are these the tribes, brother?
These are the tribes, and the land has never been divided like this. When Joshua conquered the land and divided up the land, it was not divided like this. It was not nice and straight across, like this. It was little portions, confusing portions, and not in this same order. So in Ezekiel 47, this will be the border whereby you will inherit the land according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And again, there's no mention here of Levi because Levi is in the holy portion. The Levites are the ones that help in the temple, and the priests are also from the tribe of Levi. They're just a special family from the tribe of Levi. So all the Levites are in the holy portion. But in this picture, Ephraim and Manasseh here, Manasseh and Ephraim, they each get a portion. Those are both the tribe of Joseph. So these are the 12 tribes. So there's actually 13 tribes. These are the 12 that inherit. And Joseph will have two portions right there. It says it. Concerning the which I lifted up my hand. So God swore, he lifted up his hand and swore to give it to your fathers, the Jewish people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it will come to pass that you will divide it by lot for an inheritance to you and to the strangers that sojourn among you. Now, these are the names of the tribes. And he goes on, he says, from the north end, east and west, a portion for Dan, and by the border of Dan, from east and west for Asher, and then Naphtali and Manasseh and Ephraim and Reuben and Judah. And then when you get to Judah down here, that's where you get the holy portion. And by the border of Judah, from the east to the west side, will be the offering, which you will offer 25,000. It shouldn't say reeds, it should say cubits in width and in length as one of the other parts, from the east side to the west side, and the sanctuary will be in the midst of it. It'll be 10,000 wide. It will be for the priests, which are sanctified of the sons of Zadok. So there you see which Levites are going to be the priests. It's going to be the sons of Zadok, which went not astray when the children of Israel went astray, as the Levites went astray. And over against the border of the Levites, the priests, the Levites will have 25,000, and the 5,000 left will be a profane place for the city, for the dwelling and for the suburbs, and the city will be in the midst thereof. So here I have a picture of the priest part up here, the Levites part down here, the city here in the middle, about 4,500 by 4,500. And the borders of the city will be toward the north 250 and the south and so forth 250. And we'll have 10,000 eastward and 10,000 westward. So here, this part right here is for the city people to grow some crops. And here you can grow crops because the rest is for the prince. So they can't grow crops over here. And the increase there will be for food for them that serve the city, because that'll be a government seat of government too. All the offering will be 25,000 by 25,000 with the possession of the city, and the residue on both sides will be for the prince. And now we're going to go down south some more. By the border of Benjamin, from the east side to the west side, Simeon, Zebulun, Gad. So here we see this back up here. Once you get to the southern portion, you have Benjamin, Simeon, Issachar, Zebulun, and Gad. And then the gates of the city will be named after the names of the tribes of Israel. 3 gates northward, Reuben, Judah, Levi, and so forth. So this is going to be very disconcerting to the Reformed theologians, because that don't want to give any part to Israel and the kingdom, nothing special for Israel, but they are going to be special because all the gates are going to be named after them. And by the way, in the eternal state after the 1,000 years, they will also get it. I saw a new heaven and new earth, for the first heaven and first earth were passed away, and there's no more sea. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride for her husband. I heard a voice saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. He will dwell with them. They shall be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. So God, we're not going up to live with God. God the Father is going to come down and live with us after the Messianic Kingdom. During the Messianic Kingdom, it'll just be Jesus, the Son of God, God the Son, living with us.
Will it be the physical looking on God, or would it be just like what's the ark? You couldn't see God.
I would say that we're just going to see Jesus probably,
You're going to
but
see him personally.
but God the Father will still come down and dwell with us, and but we're not going to go up and dwell with him in heaven. He's going to come down and live on earth with us. And then when you get to the city, you have these different foundations, and let me see, maybe it's the next chapter. This is 21, 22. I think I clicked it. Right. So yeah, it must have been 21. Sorry. These gates. Here. So it had a wall, great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. So not only are the gates going to be named after the tribes of Israel in the Messianic Kingdom for 1,000 years, but also in the eternal state forever, the gates of the New Jerusalem are going to be named with the 12 tribes of Israel. So yes, Israel will have a special place forever. So sorry about that, Reformed theologians. It was round about 18,000 measures, and the name of the city from that day forward will be "The Lord is there." Now, here's a picture of, if you take those places where the Bible doesn't give a measurement, it just says 25,000, and you say, well, those are reeds, then the city would be this big. See this big square right here? It would be touching the Mediterranean on one side and covering up the Dead Sea on the other side.
Right.
But if you interpret it the right way and you say that they're cubits, then it would be this square right here, which would fit nicely on top of this new mountain that's going to be there. And you could have a nice valley with a road for access leading up there.
Is it going to be higher or something?
Yeah, Jerusalem will be the highest place on the earth. The Alps will be brought lower, and Jerusalem will be brought higher, but not as high as the Alps, or we would need help with oxygen, you know. But here's the Judean mountains right now, these dotted lines, they're going to be brought down. And here's the Samarian hills right now, they're going to be brought down. And Jerusalem is going to be lifted up. So that's going to be the highest mountain in the world, which makes a really nice ascent up to the Temple Mount. It'll be a great outing day to come here to visit when our turn comes to visit, and take this walk up the mountain and walk through the temple from the north and go out the south, or from the south and go out the north. Anyway, so this shows that these are indeed cubits that should be put into the text. Here it is superimposed over the existing city of Jerusalem, with the offering to the Lord right here, the sanctuary and the holy place. Here's the priests and the temple on this here, and the border and the city. Here's the valley that's made when his feet touch down on the Mount of Olives, and the Mount of Olives goes towards the north and south and makes this valley, and the river coming out here. So here's my recommendation and request to everybody that's here, to you, John, and anybody that hears this, is let's meet up on 333 in the northwest outer court. So remember the outer court. We have to bring up the other one. I shouldn't have closed it. Remember, the outer court is the part we're allowed to go in. And when I say 333, I mean the third month, the third day of the third month of the third year after the kingdom is set up. So maybe that's a better one. Nope, that's not a better one. Where's a good picture here? All right, this one might be good. Come on. Oh, I have to click this first. Okay. Okay, here we are. Oh, no, not yet. There we go. So we're either going to come in the north gate over here, and then we come up into this outer court, And right here in this corner, let's meet over there. The third year after the kingdom is set up. I don't know what date that's going to be exactly yet, but once the kingdom starts, I'm sure we'll know. And the third month and the third day, let's meet right over here. Maybe we're allowed to go on this porch here on this pavement. Remember, these steps aren't supposed to be here. This should be all filled in. But on this pavement, right over here by the boiling places, we can meet there on the third day of the third month. And why 3-3? Because oh, I don't have the text in here. How about that? It's because of John 3:3. I'm in Word. I need to be in this part. Okay, we're going to stop here in a second. I'll just get this one last piece in. So John 3:3. You want to read this one? This part start right there.
Jesus answered and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God.
Right. And the kingdom of God he's talking about, we saw from Matthew, is not talking about a spiritual kingdom, because Jesus wouldn't have had to stop preaching a spiritual kingdom after he was rejected in Matthew 11 and 12. But he did stop preaching the kingdoms at hand after Matthew 11 and 12. So he's talking about this physical kingdom, the Messianic kingdom. And he says, you can't see this physical kingdom. You can't be one of these people that walk through this gate and walk into this outer court here. You can't be in this kingdom unless you're born again. Except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. That's John 3:3. So that's why I'm suggesting that we meet on, let's meet 3:3 after kingdom, according to John 3:3. You think you can remember that, John?
John 3:3.
So you think you can remember to meet here on the third month of the third day of the third month in the third year of the kingdom?
Yeah.
You can? Okay, well, we'll see you then. If he lets us, I mean, I don't know what the rules are, about when we're allowed to visit there, but if he lets us, maybe you can ask special permission.
Amen.
We
Praise
said
God.
we planned on meeting here on 3:3. So,
Amen. Praise God.
all right, let's do that then. All right, thanks again for coming, John.
Well, I appreciate your ministry to me. You opened a new world to me. And thank you for sharing your ministry.
Good. I'm trying to
It's
make
been
it
a
very
blessing.
concrete here, because the whole purpose of giving us all this nine chapters of details and so much information about this building is so that we know something
Now,
solid and concrete we're going to see.
What's the Palestinians in the Arab?
The same thing that happens to all the other people in the world. If they're born again, according to John 3:3, they'll be there. If they're not born again, they won't be there.
So it will be
Now the countries will be there except for certain countries. Like Edom won't be there. That's southern Jordan. Jordan is made up in the old days. The place that's Jordan now used to be Moab and Edom and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now for the other one, but northern Jordan will be there. But southern Jordan, Edom won't be in the kingdom. But a lot of these other countries will enter the kingdom. And they'll have a king, just like David over Israel. They'll have a king.
will the apostles be here with us?
The apostles will be ruling Israel. Each of the apostles will rule one tribe of Israel. Yeah, so we'll get to talk to them. Of course, time permitting, we can't all talk to them at the same time.
Right.
Right. All right. Thanks again, John. I'm going to stop.
Well, thank you.
Stop this.
It's been a nice time to the fellowship with you.
Good.
Get to know you.
I'm going to end meeting for